Hey everyone, and welcome back to this week's episode of Tuesdays with Miss Tampa. Today I am talking with none other than Miss America 2020, Camille Schrier. That's right, we have her here with me today, and I am so excited for you to get to know more about her. Hey Camille.
Hey there. Thank you so much for having me on. This is such a wonderful idea. Thanks. I'm really glad that you included me in this.
We're excited to talk to you. So, my first question is if you could share more about yourself, where you're from, and what you're up to these days.
So I am actually from Bucks County, Pennsylvania, which is kind of confusing because I was Miss Virginia. So one of the things about the Miss America organization that's really cool is that you can compete in the state that you attended school in. And so I competed in Virginia because I did my undergraduate education there and I was in grad school there. But I grew up outside of Philadelphia, and that's where I'm located now during social distancing. But I kind of call Virginia and Pennsylvania my homes. I had been in Virginia for about 6 years, and I got 2 degrees from Virginia Tech in biochemistry and then systems biology. And then I was pursuing my doctor of pharmacy at Virginia Commonwealth University. So lots of school, lots of science, lots of fun. But I'm a huge science nerd. Everybody knows that at this point. But I also really just enjoy being outdoors and cooking and baking and gardening and anything that has to do with living things. So I've been getting to do a lot of those things, at home right now during this period of time that is really abnormal for Miss America to be at home. And so I've been trying to take those moments and do what I can, because when I get back on the road, I won't be able to do those things again. So I'm trying to take this opportunity to do all the things that I love.
Yes, and that's really cool. You mentioned you're outside of Philly, in that area. My brother is actually going to school there, so I haven't visited
Cool.
yet, but I am excited to visit Philly in that area.
It's a great area.
And you mentioned you were crowned Miss America 2020. Can you share more about your journey to the Miss America crown, and what a normal day as Miss America would have looked like before and all of that?
Absolutely. So my Miss America journey, I think, is a little unique because I was a first-time local title holder. And that's not something that I think a lot of people know. And I think that there's a perception, for one reason or another, um, that you have to compete for so many years to be really successful in this organization. And that's not necessarily true. And I think that it's kind of cool because in my class of 2020, there were women that had competed for 7 years who had won their state title. But then there were also people like me who had come in and they were a first-time local title holder, first time coming into the organization, and we also won our state titles. So it shows really how there's not a formula for how this works. I entered really on a whim. I never thought that I would enter the Miss America organization. I didn't think that I would really be a fit for it because I didn't have that traditional talent. And so I saw an ad on Facebook, I'm not kidding, literally in April of last year, or I guess March. And there was a local, the last local in my state, about 2 weeks away. And I sent an email. I was like, hey, I don't really know if I can do this, but can I sign up and is it too late? And they were like, sure. And so I drove down and I figured out how to do a chemistry demonstration for my talent. And it was the first time I had ever done that, and just kind of made it work. But I never expected that to turn into a state title and then Miss America. So I think that the moral of that is everyone has their own journey, whether or not you come back 7 years and you learn every single year and you learn more about yourself, or if you just totally take a risk and end up in a new position, that's okay too. So mine's a little different. And then what was the second part of your question? I ramble so much that I just continue talking.
No worries. What would a normal day as
Mm,
look like? Because I think a lot of people don't
good
realize how
question.
Miss America does.
Oh
So
my goodness. Well, is anything normal anymore is the real question. I typically will be on the road in a hotel. So perfect example, the first day after I won Miss America, I was in New York City. I woke up, I had interviews the whole day. So do the hair and makeup in the morning and you're just going. You have one bag with you the whole day. maybe. And a lot of what I do when I'm on the road are speaking engagements. That's probably the number one thing that I did while I was still on the road. I think part of that is because I don't have necessarily that traditional performance aspect. And when I was doing my performing, which is science, that was typically in schools. So a lot of events, I was doing speaking engagements, I was meeting with people, I was trying to advance my social impact initiative. So I got to meet with like the DEA, I'm on calls with the CDC, so lots and lots of calls too. So like in between meetings, I have like AirPods in and I'm on calls. And really every day is like incredibly busy. Like it's not just one event. I would have multiple events in a day typically. And sometimes I would literally like get on a plane here on the East Coast and I would be flying to California, for example, and like have an event that night in California. So long days, really crazy. Biggest struggle is I had to make sure, there's checkout time at hotels. So when I was leaving in the morning, typically we were checking out and we'd be in like a different hotel every night. So not only do you have to like get ready in the morning, you also have to make sure that like you get everything back in your suitcase and like zip it up and lock it. So it's like get dressed, put everything on, and then put everything away immediately. So lots of time management, but of course it has completely changed now. And March was I think it was March 13th was the last day that I was actually on the road, and I got home and then COVID kind of happened and everything got canceled. And so I just have never actually left again. And so that's kind of crazy how long that's been. But eventually I'll get to go back and do other things again, but we just don't know when that will be.
Exactly. Well, you have done an incredible job in Miss America transitioning to that work-home life, which is not typical for a Miss America, as you mentioned. What advice do you have for local and state title holders that are attempting to do the same thing during this time?
Yeah, I think my biggest piece of advice in that would just to be creative. I think being innovative, I mean, I'm a scientist. I go back to innovation all the time. People get sick of me talking about innovation, but it's so important because I think just trying to do things in a normal way isn't going to make progress in our world. It's not going to make progress in our lives. And trying to change things and adapt to different situations is such an important skill to have as a title holder, number one, but also as an employee when you're in an actual corporate, career position. So finding ways to do that now, whether or not it's finding a way to advance your social impact initiative virtually, do virtual appearances. I've done lots on Zoom with schools and come in and virtually taken over a classroom for a day. Done lots of interviews and podcasts to talk about drug safety and abuse prevention, which is my social impact. There's been lots of ways that I can connect with people virtually. I've made science videos to post on YouTube. And I think that one of the beautiful things about this, even though, I'm a big person, I'm a big positive thinking person and making lemonade out of lemons.
Yes.
And I really thought about how, even though I'm not on the road, being able to create things that are posted virtually, I almost have the opportunity to impact more people because of that virtual platform. So to really remember that and utilize that. And so I've been doing a lot of that. So that's definitely what I would say for local and state title holders. And I would say my class of 2020 have done such a wonderful job in continuing their work from home. And I'm really impressed by what they've done. And some of the local title holders as well have invited me to do some of their projects that they're working on, like you. I know there was a girl in South Carolina that did like a Read with a Queen initiative where we were all reading books for school age students. And so such wonderful ideas. So definitely creativity is the number one key.
That is great advice. Now, going back to your social impact, you mentioned about drug safety, and it is so important today. Why is it important for everyone, but especially young people, to learn about, drug safety and addiction in general?
Yeah, I think part of the reason I chose that initiative for my social impact initiative when I was starting to compete was the fact that it touches every single person's life in this country. It's rare to find someone that's not ever taken a medication at some point. I mean, even as small as just like Tylenol or Advil for a fever. And so I looked at that and realized as a pharmacy student, the kind of impact and danger that can happen with even the most benign medicines. And particularly for young people, really young people like kiddos, school-aged kiddos, number one, are at a huge risk for poisoning from medications that aren't stored properly, or maybe that they aren't aware is a medication and they haven't had that kind of knowledge from mom and dad to say, hey, we don't put anything in our mouth that we don't know what it is, or we haven't asked an adult. And that was number one for me, to be able to keep people safe. But then for other young people, maybe like us, or, teenagers, there is still a culture in this country of just normalized drug abuse. At parties, in college, I saw a lot of other students misuse each other's prescription medication to stay up all night to study for exams. And that was just a normal thing. And that's really scary if you think about how normalized it's become in our society with these really powerful medications. And so I think that it's important for young people to have someone who's not their parent or their teacher or some kind of, authoritative figure in their life come out like a Miss America and say, this is dangerous. This is bad for you. This can really change the course of your life, whether or not you lose your life, you get into trouble with the law and lose opportunities later. Or if you end up in an addiction cycle, which can also happen really sometimes without your own knowledge. You might try something once and fall into this really dangerous cycle. So it's something I'm really passionate about. And especially as someone working in a field where I'm potentially giving those medications to people at some point, I think I have a real responsibility to make that impact. So it's been a wonderful thing to be able to advocate for. And unfortunately, I've heard so many stories of people who are just touched by this so personally and are grateful for someone being able to bring it to the forefront.
Mm-hmm. And I know recently you have been working with Advanced Recovery Systems and as a brand ambassador for our program called Real Talk. It was so exciting to have you on our training webinar and to have you lead by example in this area. So thank you for that.
Of course.
I know you have had a lot of opportunities throughout your science demonstrations, and you virtually got to meet Dan Schneider of the Netflix docuseries The Pharmacist. Can you share more about how that went?
So me and Dan are like buds now. We talk all the time, and it's really wonderful to have that connection with someone who I really admired looking at his docuseries. He is such an example of someone who saw a problem and is so committed to changing that in so many ways. Probably one of the most dedicated and persistent people that I've met in a long time. And it's been wonderful. He has a lot of connections that I hadn't had, and I have some connections that he didn't have. And so that's the really cool benefit of this job, and really isn't independent. It's independent of me being Miss America. Local, state, this is not anything that is just a Miss America level skill. The networking piece of this organization, to be able to connect with someone like him, and we mutually benefit each other. And we've been able to get the word out in very different groups. Dan is using Netflix. I'm using social media. He's not really big on social media. So we kind of complement each other, and we can reach so many more people. He's a wonderful asset, and he's really committed specifically in the opioid use piece of what I do. And so my social impact is a little divided, because I do a lot of medication safety with parents and kids and talking to teenagers. But I also have this piece that's very focused on the opioid epidemic in our country. And that's where Dan and I really have connected to work on that. And so we had lots of plans of things we were going to do in person. We were going to actually be on Capitol Hill together in April, but that got moved. So hopefully we'll be able to get a chance to do that again. But if you have not watched Netflix docuseries, The Pharmacist, anyone watching, you definitely need to go check it out. It's really, really informative.
That's very exciting, and I do hope you get to do all of those things super soon. And
me too.
Now, what is your big advice for young women competing in Miss America, or even considering to compete?
For those considering to compete, it really adds so much to your life. I mean, more so than just the scholarship money that you get to earn. it's like a paid internship is kind of the way that I like to describe it, especially if your social impact initiative is career related for you, like it is for me. I get the opportunity to spend time as a title holder advancing what will become my career. And I'm getting paid to do it. So that is really wonderful. Or, I mean, in any level of this organization, you're getting scholarship money to do that. So it's such a cool opportunity to get those extracurricular things in that maybe you wouldn't have the opportunity to just sitting in the classroom, either as a high school student, as a college student. It adds so much to your resume, and you get those skills that you wouldn't get anywhere else. I think for people who are actively competing in the organization, the biggest piece of advice that I have is to not let other people change you. Stay true to who you are, even if you are completely different than everyone else. I was kind of terrified just doing everything. I felt like I did everything different when I competed. And not because I was intentionally trying to do everything different, but it was just who I was. And part of me, and maybe people around me, wanted me to kind of like be a little bit more of, you know, what Miss America always has been, or what a state title holder has always been. And I was just completely okay. I'm like, if I don't win and I was exactly myself, then I wasn't supposed to win. And so if you want to wear something that you're totally in love with, for example, I wanted to wear my white pantsuit in my interview so bad. And it was December, and everyone's like, Camille, you cannot wear a white pantsuit in December. And like, you're a little serious and you look a little too serious. And I was like, guys, I don't care. I want to wear it. Everyone wanted me to wear a dress. I was like, I'm wearing my suit. And I'm glad I did, because I would never want to look back in any of those instances and say, well, if I had changed that one thing and really done what I wanted to do, maybe the outcome would have been different. So stay true in that. And it's okay to not be like everyone else. Even if you're the one girl backstage with beakers, it's okay. And I think it's really important that as an organization, we celebrate other women who are just being them. And I think it's really cool when people do things differently. So I'm excited to help other women do that too. And so I think that's my biggest piece of advice.
That so much, and I know that resonates in my life just through competing through this, and really staying authentic to who you are is what it's all about.
So true.
Now, as Miss America embarks upon its 100th anniversary, which is so cool, what do you say to people who ask, why is Miss America still important today?
I get that question a lot. And it's really interesting because people are curious because of the history of Miss America. This used to be, you know, it started as a bathing suit competition in 1921 on the boardwalk of Atlantic City. How did we get to where we are? How has this changed? And I think that one of the things that I always go back to is that women who have competed in Miss America from 1921 on have continuously pushed cultural boundaries. I mean, in 1921, women just got the right to vote, and it was like a scandalous thing to wear swimsuits, especially without bloomers. Like, if you wore tights with your swimsuit, it was a big deal. But these women were super progressive. And if you think about what those women were doing in their time period, they were pushing everything that was the social and cultural boundaries for women. That's still true in 2020 in a very different way, in a way that is more relevant to our time period. I blew some stuff up on stage. People were a little confused, but that's okay, because I was trying to do what what was true to me, but I also was pushing the boundaries of women in 2020. And I like to confuse people when they're like, wait a second, you do science and you're Miss America. And I thought that Miss America was just a beauty queen that waved and smiled. And there's still that perception, but we are able to change that. So I think that the relevance in Miss America in 2020 is the fact that we are still pushing everything that people expect about women, or proving people wrong. We're teaching women to be strong and impactful women in their communities, which I think is the most relevant thing that we can do for women in any time period. I know we are empowering women by giving, these positions and giving each woman an opportunity to make a difference and encouraging her to advocate for a social cause. That's the really cool thing. And we get scholarship money, which is another huge. And I think that also people don't realize that scholarship piece, a lot of it. When I tell people that I've pretty much paid for almost the rest of my pharmacy school just by doing this in 1 year, people are shocked. And that's relevant. So there's so many pieces. I could go on for an hour, but the opportunities that we get in this job are so incredibly unique, and I don't think you could get them anywhere else. And so I think that Miss America, even though it's changed throughout time, continues to change to stay relevant in whatever time it is.
Absolutely. And now I'd like for people to get to know you a little bit better. So if we can do a little speed round about you,
Absolutely.
all about Camille. So, okay, first question. What is your favorite hobby?
Okay, my favorite hobby is probably cooking or baking or both, particularly of the dough type. I really like doing like yeasted dough recipes. Or just any kind of dough recipes. I did pasta this weekend. I made Greek yogurt bagels last week, and then I had made pretzels like the week before. So I love experimenting with like weird dough recipes. Really enjoyed that. So love the kitchen. It's probably where you find me all the time.
I love baking so much. Even when I don't need to be baking, I am baking, and then I eat all of it. So yeah. Now, what is your biggest pet peeve?
Ooh, what is my biggest pet peeve? I feel like this should be an easy answer for me. I think when things are disorganized. I'm like a huge, and like physically disorganized because I'm a neat freak. And so if things are not like lined up and like organized and clean, I just can't. So I sometimes will get distracted because like if my desk is not organized, I like clean everything and then I am like, wait, I'm supposed to do actual work. And then I finally get back to work. So I think that untidiness is my biggest pet peeve. I'm a big neat freak.
Favorite food?
Okay, so favorite food is ice cream. Really, low key. Really like ice cream. It's one of my favorite things to get when I go to different cities because especially like local ice creams from local creameries are a big yes for me. Not just like your normal like chain ice cream store. That's definitely my favorite thing.
And least favorite food?
Oh, this is easy. Cilantro. I hate cilantro. I'm one of those people. And I could talk about this all day long because it's a genetic thing. Like you either have a gene where you can taste a chemical in cilantro and you hate it, or you don't have that gene. So I have the gene. Cilantro tastes like soap to me. And if there's a flake of it in my food, I won't eat it. And that's like the only thing I won't eat. So just for reference.
Okay, and the last question, how can people follow you on social media?
Okay, so I am on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter at Camille Schrier, so my first and last name. And then the Miss America organization is same Instagram, Facebook, Twitter at Miss America.
Okay, yes, and like I said, I really hope you can get on the road whenever it's safe and possible to do so. You have been a great Miss America, and like I said, you have been a great example for all of us, even the local title holders, to see how you can use this situation to your benefit and make the best out of it.
Thank you so much. And I'm so excited to see what you're going to do in your year. So best of luck preparing for Miss Florida. I know you're going to have a great time. And thank you for having me on today.
Yes, it's a pleasure. Thank you so much. Bye.
Thank you.